Anyway, let's get on to something not quite so miserable. In fact, it's very good, as a matter of fact. Stop smiling and laughing quietly.
It's time now for the latest news on what's hot and what's not in the world of technology with Matthew Dickerson on Tech Talk. Here on TCFM 88.9.
Morning, Matthew.
I'm glad that you're not describing this segment as miserable, Richard. I'm very glad about that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you are. I mean, it was a miserable thing to do to those students.
Oh, yeah.
Kids trying their hardest and going for it, and then having to be disrupted like that, and then having to put in, the forms to say that we were in a bomb scare, I couldn't finish the exam, blah, blah, blah. And they may have marks that are not as good from their trial and from their projects. And,
That's right.
it's really sad. But I tell you what, we've got some very interesting things that you have sent me this week, and I really don't know where to start, but I'm going to start with this one. Can you have a cooler house and a cooler car by using a different paint?
Well, logic says that any man or his dog can work out that if you've got, say, a black car or a white car, you understand the black car is going to be a bit hotter.
Yep.
And that makes sense, and it's fairly commonly known. But researchers have been working on a radiative white paint. So it's not just normal white paint that just seems to absorb less of the heat than, say, a surface might do, but it actually radiates that heat. So they're talking about 95.5% of the heat that hits that surface actually radiates back off it. The difference in temperature between something that's painted with normal paint and this radiated paint is about 10 degrees Celsius.
Whoa.
So think of a car that might be 10 degrees cooler, or think of your house that might be 10 degrees cooler because of that radiated paint. Then you start to think of air conditioning might not be needed or might need to be run at a lower rate, less energy used, better for the environment, better for your electricity bills. So it sounds like pretty exciting research and sounds like something that's been worked on for a long time, but maybe they've finally got the holy grail there of getting it all together. Probably next year before you'll be able to buy it commercially. I have no idea of the pricing, and that might throw the whole thing a spanner in the works. You might save $100 in your electricity bill, but pay $10,000 for the paint.
But anyway.
Yeah, but the concept is brilliant.
All right. Now, this other one, and this has got to be appeal to everybody, and I mean everybody, Robots et al. Fixing potholes.
Yeah. This is in the UK. They've actually
Yes.
got a prototype of this particular robot right now. And I remember the Cars movie, the Disney Cars movie. I
Yeah.
remember that where
Yeah.
there's basically a big machine that goes along and takes a terrible old road or even a piece of dirt and turns into bitumen. It's not quite as good as that. What it will do initially is it will go along and scan the road as it's going, and it's looking for cracks or undulations, things that will turn into potholes, and it fixes those before they get larger. So obviously preventative maintenance there. If it does find a pothole, it'll fix that. But these machines go along fairly slow, as you can imagine, filling asphalt. So they do something even cleverer than that. The plan is to put the sensing equipment in things like garbage trucks and taxis that are travelling over many more roads, gathering a lot more information. So then that information can be collated back and the machine can be sent to the various locations where there are cracks or potholes or undulations in the road. So it's not like this big devices to go along at 10 kilometres an hour on every road. All the data is being brought back from other vehicles and then this device is just sent to those individual ones. So the idea of the researchers is that they want to have a whole army, if you like, of these robots, these AI robots out there on the roads throughout the UK, and the cost saving would be dramatic because if you can do it when it's a crack or a small undulation or a small problem with the road, it's going to be dramatically better than going and waiting till the road's a major problem and then trying to fix it.
And dig the pothole out and then, have half a dozen rollers there, trucks and blokes with signs and so on and so forth.
Shutting down the road.
Fixing the road. On that, I wonder why is it after you've been over the roadworks, 2 miles up the road, you see end of roadworks and you can speed up again. I don't know why they put them so far away, but that's another story.
That's another story for another question for
Yeah,
another person.
Yeah, for another person. Well, I don't know. You might be able to find out something. Yes. Now, can I charge my mobile on the run with a solar panel?
Well, it sounds
Where
a bit
do I
unwieldy.
where do I wear the solar panel?
That's right.
Here?
It's a bit unwieldy to carry around a normal solar panel above your head. You see solar panels on roofs, they're very stiff and fairly large. But again, researchers have been working on being able to generate solar energy out of a gel-like substance, and they're then incorporating that into textiles. So rather than having a flat, solid, hard surface, it could be on something like a hat, a cap, a t-shirt, maybe the back of your t-shirt, maybe the shoulders of your t-shirt. Now, it's not going to be enough electricity generated from all of that to go and run your household. But if you're out and about and you wanted to just keep a charge going in your mobile phone, maybe in your watch, just some of those small devices you might use, they can generate enough power to do that. And you may be familiar, Richard, with people, I sometimes see them at cafes, where they'll turn up to a cafe and they've got a little unit that is small, hard, square sort of type unit, and they unfold it and they sit there in the sun, and that puts enough charge into their phone to charge up their, charge created to charge up their phone.
Yeah.
So that's the type of thing we're talking about here, where you've got those things incorporated into your clothing. The real advantage here, I think, is not so much you and I being able to charge up while we're sitting at a cafe, but in some third world countries where there's not a lot of places to plug in your telecommunications equipment, then having the ability to keep your devices charged up as you go about your day, wherever you might be, that's where it will make a significant difference to some people's lives.
Yeah, you're assuming, of course, in a lot of those third world countries, everybody's wearing a shirt.
Well, possibly this might be a reason for them to wear a shirt.
Sure, it might be, but I'm thinking they could probably incorporate into sunscreen
Well,
and do the same thing.
Yeah, that's
Finally, mate, Victorian Police trying to catch people during the grand final celebrations. This is a very interesting story. Number one, how many did they catch? Did it work? Etc. etc.
Well, they didn't catch anyone, which means it may well have worked. And so the grand final weekend last weekend, the AFL grand final, it would have been very hard for Victorians who are so focused on their AFL. It's a passion, it's a religion for many of them down there. And to say to them, you can't have parties, you can't have gatherings, you can't go and sit around at a pub and gather around to watch the grand final, that would have been incredibly difficult for people, obviously. Yeah. And the police knew that, and there were some fines shy, just under $5,000 fines you could have been subjected to. So they employed drones, and the police basically had an army of drones going around, just looking at backyards, looking at various areas, even some areas where you could gather in small groups publicly, so like a beach, for example, you couldn't have alcohol there. So they were using the drones to basically keep an eye on people not consuming alcohol and keep an eye on gathering. So if you're trying to beat, you'd probably stay inside, everyone inside. But again, if the drone saw a number of cars parked outside the front of someone's house, that'd be enough evidence for them to go and knock on someone's door and say, how many people are here, and then go for it from there. So great to see some technology being used, and sometimes we see technology used, for example, drug drops in prisons, on the other side of the law, but good to see the good side of the law using technology for the betterment of society.
I think so, but I also believe that drones are going to be essentially very, very good for life saving in the future. They're also being employed on a number of beaches in New South Wales, looking out for sharks and other detritus in the ocean.
Yeah, and we've chatted about that before. And so again, as the drones get better, they can fly faster, they can fly for longer, the battery technology is getting better, and the camera technology is getting better on them. As all that continues to improve, we'll see more and more uses.
Now, you noticed I've just folded my notes and put them into that basket there. I have one further question to ask you.
Hit me with it.
Hit you with it. When you are taking your electric car down to be charged with the chargers near the art gallery and that particular part of the world, and it's pouring with rain, and you put the charger into the car, are you going to zap yourself with the rain?
No, it's just like a power point in the outside world. If you've got a power point in the outside of your house and you plug a lead into it, you're not going to electrocute yourself. To do that, you'd obviously need to have water going from a positive to a negative terminal through your body across your heart to electrocute yourself. But they know that it's going to rain. So they know that it's not always going to be sunny and dry. And so the way they're built, if you actually have a look at the unit itself where the electric charger plugs in, it's got a shroud around there and it's got insulation around there, so you can plug it in knowing no water's going to get in there, and away it goes. And on the weekend on Sunday, we actually had an EV display over in Manildra, and there were 11 EVs there. It was pouring with rain, and one of those cars there was plugged in there, more or less to demonstrate to everyone here that here we are in the middle of the pouring rain, and it's plugged in and charging up. So I've never seen any problem with that in all the years I've owned electric cars, and they're built to handle being charged up in the rain. Otherwise, it would be very inconvenient not to be able to charge up in the rain.
Well, I can guarantee you can charge them in the snow, because I was in Canberra that weekend where it was snowing, and my brother's got an electric Porsche, and he was charging that while it was being snowed on. So I knew that worked.
I'm sure in all the testing, one of the first things that the manufacturers did was to say, we're going to have to be able to charge these in the rain, in the snow, in the sun. Let's test all that and make sure that they can be charged up in all those conditions. And yes, there's no problem with that at all.
The one thing I didn't want to see is see you plug it in and see Matthew going and an ambulance arriving.
Now, don't need to be an ambulance. If you electrocute yourself on the
That's
voltage
it.
they put out, there'd be no ambulance
No,
required.
no ambulance required.
It'd be too far gone.
Yeah, you bring up Shakespeare's. Yeah, all right. Look, good talking with you, mate. We'll see you next Wednesday. Thanks for all that. And look after yourself with your car.
Thanks, Richard.
Okay. Matthew Dickinson and Tech Talk, and he's back with us next Wednesday morning around about 9:15. The music continues now on DCFM 88.9 and 27 to 10 with the Beatles and Lady Madonna.